Hey, Meghann, Scully, and this is the Limerick Post Show. And joining me now is Shane Barry of Mary Immaculate College. You're very welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Megan. Thanks for having me.
And we're going to talk about your Gaeilge Irish findings in a little bit and your research. But first of all, I want to go back to your PhD in linguistics and where I suppose, the interest for linguistics and why you decided to pursue a PhD.
Well, I went kind of the long way around to get to linguistics. I went back in the last Great Recession, you could call it, back in 2010. I went back to college as a mature student, and I undertook an undergraduate in international business, so kind of quite removed from languages. But there were language elements to it because a part of it was an Erasmus year abroad. So we were doing lots of intercultural exchanges with foreign students, and I was learning French and Spanish as well at the time. So I always had a kind of an interest in languages, but not a kind of a formal interest as such. So I finished that then, and I undertook a master's in international public policy and diplomacy in UCC. Again, far away from applied linguistics. When I finished that course, there was about a year then when I was working, and I really missed being in college. So I said, right, okay, this time I'm actually going to do a course that I'm interested in rather than one I'm doing just to try and get a job.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of way. So because I had a job, so I said, right, okay, this one's about me this time. So the Mary Immaculate College have a great master's in applied linguistics that can be taken in a kind of blended learning format. So for people that are a lot of the students I never even met because they're in Dubai, China, all around the world. They're English teachers, and they were doing the course to improve their understanding of language for when they're teaching. So you could do it basically from your bedroom. So perfect for me because I wasn't in a position to give up work and drive up and down to Limerick each day. So completed the course, really enjoyed it, and my master's thesis kind of sparked my interest in the PhD topic. It's kind of an extension of that. And basically what I looked at was people's perceptions of forgetting their Irish language abilities. So I kind of took that notion and kind of put a slightly different spin on it, and to look at how people develop those perceptions, those beliefs over years, and what is stopping people from thinking they can speak a language, or what is making people, I suppose, what is giving people confidence to speak a language. So trying to understand the kind of psychology of it. And the starting point of all those, just to go back to the applied linguistics, is myself having gone through the Irish education system, like so many Irish adults, taking the Irish language to leaving cert level and looking back many years later and going, I have no Irish, why don't I have any Irish? And just trying to understand what's the psychology of me saying that, even though I've, like most people, would have experienced over 2,000 hours of Irish tuition in school over 14 years. And I feel I have no Irish at all. So that's the kind of starting point.
It's so interesting because when you think about it, how many of us studied Irish from baby infants and then all the way up through, as you said, through college to leaving cert level. But then, though, there's a lot that picked up French and Spanish only in first year and became fluent in a year or two, which is the way Irish language should be now. I was born in Dublin into an English speaking school, moved to Spiddal when I was 5. So we're in the Gaeilge then for 5 years, and then moved back to another English speaking school. And I actually found when I saw your research, I thought it was really interesting because I guess I am fluent in Irish, but my confidence in Irish isn't as good as it should be for someone who's studied as much Irish. And as well, when I moved to the English school after the Gaeltacht, I almost kind of dumbed down my Irish because the students used to be like, I was the new girl, and they were like, why do you sound like that when you speak Irish? Because I suppose I had the real Connemara kind of dialect.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And I was like, I don't want to sound different. So I tried to English, make my Irish sound more English because I was trying to fit in with the classmates. And it's only now in adulthood that I actually kind of got the love for the Gaeilge again and studied it actually in university. And I just found it fascinating because you meet so many people as well who are like, no, I don't speak Irish. I can understand it though. And I was like, well, if you understand Irish, you probably can speak it. It's just, I personally feel like it's a confidence thing. But what did you find in your research?
Well, if you looked at, when I was looking at other research of other languages, because no one has really done it in Irish. So that's great for me because it's a kind of a fresh area and people are kind of eager to speak about it. But in languages like French, Spanish, German, Dutch, there's been loads of studies on this concept, the psychology of how people feel they've forgotten the language. And they've tested people on, given, say, for example, looked at a person's results when they finished school and then gone back to them a couple of years later and tested them again. Before they test them, they ask them their perceptions, and the majority of them say it's gone. I can't remember to do anything. But when they actually test them, then there's very little evidence of complete loss of the language. The language is still there. It's just a case of trying to reuse it in a particular context. But it's interesting what you spoke about there, because that's another aspect to it, the idea of dumbing down your abilities. That's a whole other thing. That's kind of a social, they call it a sociolinguistic um, kind of kind of area of research, where people, it's how people socially use a language. And if you feel like, it's like when someone goes for a job interview and you're talking in a way that you would never talk amongst your friends, because we speak in different grades of types of language we use. We talk to our parents differently, we talk to a person in a shop differently. And it's interesting that you felt that you had to dumb down your Irish to fit in socially in a school. So that's a whole other thing. I'm not actually researching that, but that's a whole other area for someone else who might be watching this. It's open for research. But yeah, I found that when I looked at it from an Irish language perspective, that the study I conducted that was published on the civil servants that I interviewed in the focus groups, I kind of went into civil service because I thought that was a good area to research, because each civil service department is obligated by law to provide services in Irish and English. So there's people in there that are able to speak Irish, have to work through Irish, and there's people then that would have different abilities. So I created 3 focus groups with, as I say, different abilities. And there was people in there that were an Irish language officer, a native speaker, people that had gone through their secondary school, the whole school experience in Irish, every subject. And then there's people that didn't speak the language at all, or were trying to learn it, or people had no interest. So that was kind of the format I used to kind of ask people to try and gauge where they're getting these perceptions from. But a lot of people, the majority of people, even the Irish language speakers, the native speakers, for example, that work in Irish every day, would still downplay their abilities and say, "Oh no, there's my friends in UCC, they're way better than me." But they're working in the language. Their parents are native speakers, and then people that would have spent maybe 10 years in the education system all through Irish, who would have been fluent, would be reluctant to declare themselves as having conversational abilities, despite being on the phone talking to people in Irish kind of on a regular basis. And then more interestingly, the people then that said they had no Irish at all, were started, their confidence throughout the focus group started to increase, because the people around them were using Irish, and they were actually kind of encouraging them and saying, "Oh, you did well in school, and just by listening to you, I think that you actually probably have a better level than you think." They were kind of recalibrating or rethinking their perceptions of the language. And by the end of the thing of each interview, they were there going, "Yeah, actually, maybe can I change my can I change what I put down there?" So even over the course of an hour, you can change a person's opinion on their abilities. And when you change someone's confidence, they tend to spend more time, maybe, I suppose, activating the language in their brain, and accessing it, and even starting to use it. And when you use a language, you become more confident, and it creates a kind of a positive circle. And then a very small, a slight digression here, a very small study I did last summer, where I gave over 500 people kind of 10 questions in Irish, asked them to pick out the correct sentence, what read the most accurately to them. Then I gave them false results. So people that say they got 7 or 8 out of 10, I told them they got 3 or 4. People that got 3 or 4 out of 10, I told them they got 7 or 8. Then I gave them 10 more questions. And the people that performed kind of weaker, but were told they did better, actually in the second test increased their performance and the time spent trying to find the solution. And the opposite for the people that did well, were told they did bad, they spent less time, performed worse. So it's just, even in a simple thing like that, would demonstrate that it's all to do with confidence, feedback, how you support people. So that's
So
kind of in a
fascinating.
nutshell what I found.
And I think as well, I think you kind of mentioned on, kind of pushed on there, but like with, I think Irish people were very like, "Oh no, not that good." With everything, it's like a lot of things like, "No,
Yeah.
no, stop." It's like we're very kind of humble, and also um almost like embarrassed if someone says that we're good at things. I think it's something we all need to work on. But one thing I've noticed with the Irish language in recent years is the younger generation, those who are in secondary school now, or those who are actually in university level, I see a great confidence in them, because I see an awful lot of them tweeting as Gaeilge, and they don't maybe come from like a Gaeltacht or an Irish family, but they have this real kind of grown out for it, and this real desire to learn Irish. And I think in recent years it's really seemed to have jumped in popularity. And as well now with Duolingo, I think Irish is the most popular language being learned in Ireland right now. And I've even noticed my friends during lockdown, they've been like, "Yeah, I'm trying to learn Irish again." And I'm like, "Brilliant, do it." I said, "We can all converse then and start chatting as Gaeilge for our own sake," because that's another issue I have, is I don't have anyone to converse with on a daily basis when it comes to my Irish. So I find then like lack of practice, and it's again confidence thing. But I think, like, I don't know, have you noticed like a huge shift in the whole Irish language and the maybe the interest in it, or what have you found? Or
Yeah, well, you're completely right. There's with social media and technology, there's been definitely an increase in people's interest in relearning it mainly, I think, because the majority of people that are downloading it are probably adults sitting in lockdown, nothing to do, and thinking, okay, maybe I'll start using Irish again. You have the rise then of the, I suppose, popularity of the Gaeilge,
Mm.
and there's also been a refocus on Irish in recent years on communicative competence. So gladly, thankfully, they've started or I suppose getting rid of the whole concept of rote learning things for, pointlessly. And the idea is now that you're able to communicate with someone in Irish the same way you can do with other modern languages like French, German, or Spanish. So people feel that I suppose there's a goal, there's an end game to learning it rather than just learning it to pass an exam. But yeah, I saw actually in the Irish Times a couple of weeks ago, they actually had a report on Duolingo, the amount of 100,000 times it's been downloaded in the last year alone,
Wow.
just through lockdown. It was amazing. And I think, yeah, social media is playing a great role in it, not only from access to Gaeilgeoirs or Irish speakers, but also you look at things like TG Cahir on Twitter or on Instagram, like
Yeah.
the way they're handling social media, from a kind of a really fun, I sound really old when I say that, an unhip, a fun aspect for kids, down with the kids, but from a much, I suppose, a much informal approach to kind of getting the language out there. They put up a picture of Tina Turner and put down some funny phrase in Irish, and people are going, okay, what's this about? And people would tend to look up the, the kind of translation of it. Or you see people like, with loads of followers on Twitter or Instagram, they're reposting things in TG Cahir that have put up, and people are kind of getting this interest, going, okay, that person likes Irish. Maybe Irish is not as uncool as I thought it was. So there's loads of factors, but there's definitely a much wider popularity, I think, in the language nowadays.
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned TG Cahir there. I did my thesis on TG Cahir.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and I've noticed, like, that was a good few years ago now in UL. And I've just noticed, as you said there, about their social media, whoever is behind that account. Now, I know people like saying it's probably a team of people, but whoever it is, they have absolutely, like, they're winning on social media, and it's great.
Yeah.
And you said, like, I'm seeing people as well that I know don't have Irish or maybe don't speak Irish, and they're replying to TG Cahir, and everyone's making such an effort, and it's so good to see. And that's what I love seeing on my timeline now, is the amount of people that are, as you said, conversing with them, sharing them, and people with big followings now and influencers are really starting to get on board, which I think is great. So I definitely think the language is going through a really good revival. I guess it's
It
just,
is, yeah. It's a much modern approach to the language. It's been modernized because of social media. So it's not just this far off, kind of mythical language that only exists in the eyes of Peg Thayer and
yeah.
this poetry that you've learned off. Now it actually it's been given a kind of a living, kind of almost breathing existence now on social media. It has a place on it, which is great.
No, it definitely does. Might I ask, or dare I ask, how long have you left in the PhD, or what stage are you at?
I tell people that I have 2 years left, but I mean, the average PhD takes about 4.5 years. I'm 2 years into it now and a couple of months. The funding runs out in 4 years, so that's why I say I have 4 years. So the kind of clock is ticking in that respect. But yeah, I'm in the middle of now trying to develop an Irish language test.
Oh.
Hopefully, I can kind of get out there, because I want to. Ultimately, what I'm trying to do is to see do people's perceptions match with an actual test. And it's, previous research has shown that if you just ask someone, can you speak Irish or can you do this, it doesn't really tell you. Like, it's like the census, can you speak Irish? That doesn't tell you anything. There's many functions to speaking Irish. Like, I don't know, can you go into a shop and ask for the newspaper in Irish? That's speaking Irish. Or can you stand up and talk for 1 hour in front of a class in Irish on a political subject? That's speaking Irish. So there's many gradations of how you speak a language. So I'm trying to develop a test basically that kind of pinpoints little bits. Can you do this verb, or do you recognize this adjective, kind of thing, and to try and match it then with what people perceive they can or can't do. It's just trying to get a much more accurate measurement of people's abilities with their perceptions. So that's where I am at the minute, and it is as exciting as it sounds.
Well, if you need numbers for the quiz, you can let us know here in the Limerick Post, and we can give it a share for our viewers and readers as well.
Great, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, as soon as it's finished, I'm going to try and get it out there for everyone, get as many people as possible involved.
Shane, Barry, Mary, thank you so much for chatting to the Limerick Post Show and for sharing your PhD research and findings on the Irish language with us. It's been really interesting, and I have to say, do keep us updated on what's next, and we can have a chat again about even more findings.
Great, thanks a million for having me, Megan. Appreciate it.